Hey crafters, it's Alex Vanover and welcome back to my craft room. In this video, I'm going to show you how to put inkjet printable vinyl onto epoxy tumblers. Now I'm going to be using Starcraft inkjet printable vinyl. You don't necessarily have to be using that brand in order to take advantage of this tutorial, but it may make your life a little bit easier because the tips that I'm going to give you are specifically about this kind of printable vinyl. So I get all of my printable vinyl from 651vinyl.com. So if you want to check it out, I will link it in the description, or you can find it under the vinyl menu. So let's get started. So the reason that you would use printable vinyl over traditional vinyl on a tumbler is when you have too intricate of a design to use regular vinyl for. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to upload an image that I have created specifically for this project, but I'm also going to insert my regular logo so that I can show you guys the difference between when to use vinyl and when to use a printable product. So when you upload a print and cut image, first you're going to go to upload image and you need to browse it so you can find it in your computer. I created my logo with this watermark or this brush mark behind it in PicMonkey, and I exported it as a PNG. So you can see it's a little bit transparent and it has a transparent background. If you are designing your own stuff, or if you have a choice of the file type, I would always import PNGs for print and cut. So then whatever you choose here doesn't really matter. I'll just choose moderately complex and continue. And I don't need to use my brush to clean up my design at all because I've already imported it with a transparent background. So we'll click continue. And then here's when you need to choose a print then cut image. The vinyl image or the cut image would look just like this because of the brush mark behind it. So make sure that you select print then cut, name your image and add your tags, and then click save. Then once it's saved in your computer, you can click it and click Insert Images. So let me show you the difference of these two images and why I'm going to use this one on my tumbler. So at 3 inches wide, which is the average size that I usually make my tumbler decals, this is way too small and intricate to be used with regular vinyl. So that's why I'm not going to use this image. What you'll notice with this though is that I've added a watercolor brush mark behind my logo so that the outline of my logo is going to be kind of like, a free-form circle. So it's not a perfect circle, but the thing you have to remember with printable vinyl is that you cannot use transfer tape because you run the risk of pulling the ink up off of the vinyl. So I'm going to have an image with a simple outline like a free-form circle, but the inside of it is very intricate. So I hope that makes sense to you guys as to when to use it. If you want another choice of another printable product you can use, in next week's video, which is next Friday at 8 p.m., I'm going to show you guys how to use water slide on your tumblers. So make sure that you check out my future videos for that. But for the moment, just know that with printable vinyl, you cannot see the texture behind the vinyl at all. It is completely opaque. With water slide, if you choose to use that product, you can typically see the glitter or the wood grain or whatever texture that your tumbler is a little bit behind the image. So if you want an opaque option, you want to choose printable vinyl. If you want a little bit of transparency, then you should choose water slide paper. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because that's not what I'm going to use on my tumbler. And since I have the watermark or the watercolor image behind my logo, I'm going to make my logo 3.25 inches wide. That way, I've got a little bit of a buffer around my logo. So then I'm going to click Make It. And actually, I'm going to go back and add a few more of these. The reason for that is because this is all I'm using on my tumbler. But whenever I do a print and cut project, I do my best to fill up the entire page as much as possible because I don't like to waste my printable vinyl. So I'm going to go back and add a few more images to this page, but ignore those and just keep in mind that I'm using this logo on my project. So after your page is totally full of all the items that you want to utilize, I highly recommend filling up this space with any other print and cut things you want to use, just so that you're not wasting an entire sheet of vinyl. Then you can click Continue. And the next step is to go to your printer and load your printable vinyl. So I'll show you guys how to do that and change your settings so that you get really nice, strongly pigmented printed projects. So the next thing that I need to do is load my printable vinyl into my printer. So I am going to be using the StarCraft Matte Inkjet Printable Adhesive Vinyl. I have used this product a ton and I absolutely love it. And you guys know that we sell it on 651vinyl.com. So I highly, highly recommend this printable vinyl product. So in order to load it into the tray, I'm going to pull the tray out. And I'm going to pull out all the regular paper remaining in the paper tray, just because if I accidentally print more than one, I don't want to waste any ink on printing my design on regular paper. So then I'm going to put my printable vinyl in, and the way that my printer prints is I stick my vinyl face down so that when it comes through the rollers, it prints face up. But remember that this is going to differ for every printer. So load the printable vinyl in the way that is going to make sure that your printer prints where it's supposed to, and then close the paper tray. And then when you close the paper tray, it's going to ask you to change the paper settings. And again, this is going to differ on every single printer, so it's not going to look the same for everyone. But I go into my paper type, and I go all the way down into premium matte paper. Since I am using matte vinyl, I like to use premium matte paper. And then it's just telling me not to load too much at once. So then I can click OK. Then when I go back to my design space, I'm going to make sure that the printer settings match the settings that I used here on my printer, and then my printable vinyl will print. So once you have your settings chosen on your printer, click the Send to Printer button. Then you're going to see that my printer is already connected to Design Space, and I do have my bleed turned on. I always leave my bleed on because that's going to give just like a really small border around all your images. That way when your Cricut goes to cut them, if it's off by just a little bit, the design is going to go all the way to the edges. If you turn the bleed off, chances are that you're going to get a little bit of white space around your cuts. So I always leave my bleed on. And since I used specialty settings on my printer, I'm going to utilize the system dialog to print my printable project. So I checked that button, and then I'm going to choose print. And then it's going to pop open that system dialog. But keep in mind that sometimes you need to minimize your other pages so that you can find the system dialog box. So in order to make sure that my printer settings match on my computer, I'm going to go to Preferences, and I'm going to check the exact same settings that I already set on my printer. So I'm going to change my paper type to this Premium Presentation Paper Matte. And the reason I chose paper matte is because I'm using matte printable vinyl. So that makes the most sense to me. Now, keep in mind that if you have a different printer than I do, you need to play with the settings and get these right for your printer. They may not be the same across the board, and since this is the only printer I have, I really can't give you guys any advice on what kind of printer settings you need to use. It just takes some experimentation and some playing around. So then I'm going to click OK, and then I can choose Print. So as you can see, when I use the premium matte paper, the settings on my printer use a lot more ink on prints like this, but I really like the way that this looks for printable vinyl, like this, just because I think it looks a lot nicer than when you print on regular paper. So we recommend that you start with a light cardstock option if you've never cut the printable vinyl before using the Cricut. But keep in mind, we do have all of the cutter settings that we recommend for Cricut, Silhouette, and Scan and Cut on our cutter settings document. But I actually had to create a specialty setting for mine because it cuts a little too deep for me into light cardstock. So if you need to see a video on how to create a custom setting, make sure that you check out the video linked in the upper right corner about how to get the perfect pressure setting. So once you've chosen your cut settings, you're ready to go to your machine and watch your printable vinyl cut. Then once I have my printable vinyl lined up in the upper left-hand corner of my mat, I can simply load it into my Cricut and let it do the rest. But you'll notice that I didn't put any UV laminate over top my printable vinyl. And that's because when we use printable vinyl on tumblers, we do not recommend that you add the UV laminate. The UV laminate is great because it makes the printable vinyl water resistant, but because we're gonna seal this with epoxy, the UV laminate tends to repel epoxy. So I'm just gonna cut these plain, but if I wanted to put any other stickers on here that were gonna go outdoors, I would definitely use the UV laminate, and I would cut this twice if I was going to do that. So this next step is optional, but I highly recommend sealing your decal with clear acrylic spray. So I'm using my Rust-Oleum 2-in-1 clear gloss spray, but you can use any clear acrylic spray that you have. And if you don't have any, you can buy it anywhere that spray paint is sold. So just one light layer is more than enough. Then let it dry before bringing it inside and putting it on your tumbler. So before you apply your printable vinyl to your tumbler, it needs to already be prepped with whatever method you're going to use to make your tumbler. So whether that's doing a layer of glitter and epoxy, or like I'm using the tack it method and I was able to just seal my tumbler with a coat of clear acrylic spray before I apply my decal, you need to go ahead and do any prep to your tumbler before you apply your printable vinyl. When it's time to apply your printable vinyl, all you're going to do is peel it off the backing. You can either peel it straight off, or if you're having trouble getting the vinyl off of the backing without peeling up any of the paper backing, you can kind of flip it over and begin to peel the vinyl off like this. And remember, we're not using transfer tape because that's just not going to work with printable vinyl. If you use transfer tape with printable vinyl, you run the risk of pulling the ink off of the vinyl decal before you stick it to the tumbler. And then you're going to apply it just like you would apply a normal decal. So usually I like to hold mine in a horseshoe shape. So I'm just going to hold the tumbler steady with my fingers. I'm going to stick the printable vinyl straight down onto my tumbler where I want it. So it's stuck down in the middle. Then I'm going to do the left side and smooth it down a little bit, and then the right side. So after you apply your printable vinyl decal, make sure to smooth it down really well with your fingers, and as long as the surface underneath the printable vinyl is smooth, it should go on without a problem. Then in order to finish the printable vinyl decal, all you need to do is do at least one coat of epoxy over top the printable vinyl decal to make sure that the ink and everything stays in place. You'll notice that I did not use any UV laminate with my StarCraft printable vinyl, and that's because what we found with UV laminate is that epoxy sort of needs something to stick to. So UV laminate makes the decal so smooth that the epoxy tends to slide off, cause fish eyes and other problems like that. So I do not use UV laminate with my printable vinyl on tumblers. So after you put one final coat of epoxy over your printable vinyl on your tumbler, that's it, you're finished. If you have any other questions about using printable vinyl on epoxy tumblers, make sure to drop those in the comments for me because you know that I'd be happy to answer them for you. And if you decide to try printable vinyl on tumblers, please make sure to tag me if you post them on social media because I would love to see your work. So I'll put all my social media handles right here on the screen so that you can tag me in all the platforms that you post on. And if you haven't already, please click right here to subscribe to DIY Alex and scroll down just a little bit, ring the bell right next to the subscribe button, and select all notifications from the drop down so that you never miss when I upload a new video. I hope we can craft again soon.